Everybody, welcome to a special episode of Inning Intermissions. I like to call this extra innings because we're leaving the diamond into a whole new world. Hey, man, tell us who you are today.
Yeah, my name is Ken Lovell. I'm on staff with FCA in Jacksonville, North Carolina.
I love it, Ken. All right, let's back up before we get into the FCA piece and all that. Can you just share a little bit of your story all the way through however far back you want to start to your journey into, I'm going to give a sneak peek, your military journey.
Yeah. So I grew up in Michigan. I'm a northerner by trade and real small town. It was one of those, I guess, what would be the equivalent of like a 1A school in most states. Real small, 30 people I graduated with. But 3 days after I graduated, I was off to the Marine Corps. And they got a hold of me and kept me for 21 years, made a career out of it. And then the Lord's calling was on my life to come on staff with FCA. So that was 10 years ago now, almost. August 1st will be 10 years complete doing this thing we call FCA.
That's awesome. All right, before we talk about FCA, 21 years. First off, thank you
Yeah, but
for your service. Can you share a little bit about what were some things you learned in the military that you're still living out today in the Marines?
yeah, it's a great question because what we all struggle with in transition is like, in my case, what Marine Corps things do I for sure need to let go of and keep with the Marine Corps? And then what things can I certainly take with me that will benefit whatever I do next? So we have a saying in the Marine Corps: "There's once a Marine, always a Marine," and that's what it comes down to. There's a certain work ethic. There's this idea of being a part of something bigger than yourself. That's what drew me to FCA because I felt like there was a natural transition there. But I'll tell you, probably the single most important thing that happened to me in my entire career that shaped my entire career was when I was a recruit. So just for context, I was a skinny, bullied kid in school. I wasn't the homecoming king or voted most popular or nothing like that. Just a good kid, trying to get by and survive, really. And for whatever reason, when I went the Marine Corps route, there was obviously just this natural desire in my spirit to serve my country. And but I was in boot camp struggling like you wouldn't believe, and I was looking for every reason under the sun to quit. And in one particular moment, I was in the pool, I was drowning, doing water survival training. I was suffering, and this was the breaking point for me, where, albeit I didn't say it out loud, I said it in my heart. I quit. And
Hmm.
this water survival drill instructor came over top of me and he said, "Hey boy, you got a dad?" And I said, "Yes, sir." And then he says, "Well, I bet he's really proud of you now." And what he didn't know is I'm Ken Lovell the third. So my name means something to me, and the standards of being a man and work ethic and things that my grandfather and father passed on to me, I wasn't living those out. And it was a moment of just everything crashing down on my spirit about, just conviction like you wouldn't believe. Here I was looking for a way out of the hard stuff instead of allowing the hard stuff to shape me into the man that I was created to be. And so from that point forward, man, everything only got harder. And but I was changed. I was different. That was the moment that snapped me into then becoming a part of all the Marine Corps' hardest units, elite units, set apart assignments that all have higher standards than the average. Prerequisites, physical, mental, whatever. I mean, you can't just be average to get into these things.
Hmm.
And that defined my 21 years, all tracing back to that moment where it was like, hey, there is a standard of behavior for when it gets hard, and I needed to really tap into that to do well for the next 2 decades.
Man, I love what you just said. There's a standard of behavior to do hard. So talk about that. What would you say the hardest thing you did in your 21 years of serving our country as a Marine?
Yeah, the hardest thing I ever did was be a drill instructor. So that is an assignment for those that have done it. That would tell you that you basically don't see your family for the better part of 3 years.
Oh man.
The divorce rate we call it the drill field. The divorce rate in the drill field is 75, 80%. It is as brutal on your body is anything I've ever done. I mean, you are screaming all day at recruits. So a lot of guys walk away with permanent damage. Even still to this day, I tend to talk louder than I mean to. I've got to tone it back down a little bit. That's a little bit of combination of slight hearing damage, but then also just this natural, that you're taught to be this way. And I went into drill instructor school roughly about the size I am now, probably roughly in that ballpark of 210, 213, 213 pounds, and came out of DI school 185.
Wow.
After my first 3 month cycle as a drill instructor, I was like 150 pounds soaking wet. So,
Wow.
I'm dropping 80 pounds in the period of about 6 months. And then you're being pushed I mean, you come home and if you can make it through the front door, that is, you don't fall asleep in the driveway.
Yeah.
Uh, it's everything my wife could do to put a plate in my lap and soak my feet. And then I'd go to bed and I had to sleep on a shower curtain. So my body heat was always so high. So I wouldn't sweat into the mattress. I mean, you're waking up yelling, you're getting about 4 hours of sleep and you're right back at it again all day, every day. So yeah, that was the hardest thing I ever did by far.
Man, geez Louise. I'm never gonna say I had a hard day ever again after hearing that story. I'm sure you have many more to share as well. We might have to do like a part two because I could pick your brain all day about the military stories. That's my a passion of mine. I love it. So, okay, so you said you transitioned from 21 years of being in the military as a Marine to the FCA staff. Can you, before we get into FCA, can you talk about where in your story did you meet Jesus?
Yeah, it's good. So I was actually 16. And again, Ken Lovell the third. So my dad made a decision for Christ. We grew up as Creasters, right? So Christmas and Easter, we would go to church because Grandma said so, and that was just our lifestyle. I guess I always believed in God, but that was about the extent of it. And then when the reality of the need for Jesus and the relationship that God desires to have with us through Him, came on my dad, and he made that decision, I followed naturally in suit. Like I wanted to be like my dad, and so at 16, I was given a New King James Version Bible, and I'm starting to try to read it like a book.
Yeah,
And it just nothing was sinking in. I got lost in Deuteronomy or Leviticus somewhere, and
yeah,
and then I joined the Marine Corps. And what most people don't understand, that's I think college is probably a lot like the Marine Corps in the sense that right outside the main gate, if you will, or right off campus, are all the sorts of establishments and things that do not
mm,
cultivate you becoming the man or woman that God created you to be, right? They're awful temptations. So in my days in the early 90s, it was bars and strip clubs and tattoo parlors, and that was it. That was all that was at these duty stations. There was nothing else to do except get lost in those things. So I spent way too many years not walking with the Lord, making a lot of really dumb mistakes. But I can look back now and see clearly where the Lord's hand was on my life to protect me from potentially eternally damaging consequences for making really dumb decisions and being in bad environments. And so then it was the short version of the story is kicking and streaming. We got orders to Okinawa, Japan as a family,
mm,
and we got invited to church. And it was one of those things where we felt a tug. But man, just for the Lord to do that to us, and the last place on earth we were looking to go as a family, we ended up in church. Everything unwound in a good way at that point, and we began to walk passionately for the Lord. And next thing you know, I'm leading Sunday school. Next thing you know, I'm a deacon. Then I'm a deacon chairman, and then you keep fast forwarding down that lane, and here I am, being called to
yeah.
lead in ministry
Yeah.
and walk away from the Marine Corps altogether.
That's awesome, man. That's super cool. You said we in there. So did you and your wife kind of take this step together at the same time to follow Jesus?
Yeah, I guess you could say that. So, not when we were kids. We did grow up together, but my
Yeah,
wife's journey
yeah,
was not walking with me initially. So I went in the Marine Corps. She went
yeah,
on with life, and it wasn't really until I came back and got together with her and started kind of witnessing to her. I think she certainly discovered that I was a different kind of guy than most of the guys she was pursuing, and it was because of the Lord, even though I didn't really know how to articulate that well back then. And but then in Okinawa, Japan, I clearly, as we were in church together at that point, that's when I clearly told her, "Look, I am not leading you the
mm,
way that God created me to. I'm leading you into all the wrong stuff, and that stuff stops now."
mm. That's
And,
good.
uh, and it was that commitment that we then together made that we were going to do things different. It was so crazy how I vividly remember sitting in like Sunday school or something, and people start to open up about things, and we would open up about our journey a little bit, and people were like, "What? I never would have guessed that. Like I thought you guys just grew up Christians or whatever." That the transformation was so significant that people could not wrap their head around us being these sinful heathens, just not too long ago.
Yeah.
And so praise God for that. And so yeah, ever since she's been walking that out with me. And and now is on staff with me. She's my admin assistant. She's a coach in our volleyball club. Like she's leading for the Lord, just like I am, just in different ways.
That's awesome, man. I appreciate you being transparent about that. The transformation piece, that's just authentic and real. So, all right, let's talk about your transition from military life to civilian life. What was that like for you? What was that gap like between leaving the military, going right into FCA, or was there a gap? How'd that all unfold?
Yeah, no. Again, I'll give you the short version, but there was some incredible adversity that I faced at the very end of my career, where I had some people start making accusations about me online, and it spiraled out of control. And it was the worst season of my life for a couple months while all that was fleshing itself out. And when it was all said and done, then I was asked, where do you want to go next? Meaning next duty station. Uh, and I just really felt like I'm not so sure that this organization is going to get from me all that I've given it for the last 21 years. I was really let down by how easy it was for somebody to make an accusation and it to get way more legs than it ever should have. So I was not perfect in it all by any means, but I wasn't nearly as criminal or negligent as they were trying to make me out to be. So there's this like deep, deep wound. And I just decided like I had too much respect for, so I had attained the rank of sergeant major, and that's the highest enlisted rank in the Marine Corps. So that's both a rank, but it's also a unit title as well, to be the battalion sergeant major. And I just had too much respect for it to continue to serve anymore, knowing that I'm going to stand in front of thousands of young men and women who might have a question in the back of their mind, like, which story is true, the negative one or the one that he's telling us. So I just couldn't do it anymore.
Mm-hmm.
And so then the short version of the story is the Lord made it really clear that he was calling me to join FCA and to make Christian athletes.
Yeah.
And the transition then was a 3-month one for me, where I was 100% committed to the fundraising journey, went all in with it. It's the only thing I did for 3 months. By God's grace, obtained the funding to come on staff. And got to work as the director at that point, right out the gates, trying to figure out how to be a ministry leader. But does that answer your question about the transition?
No, it does. That's perfect. Yeah. Yeah.